Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Vegan Proteins and Muscles by Brussels Radio. My name is Giacomo.
And I'm Danny.
And this is episode 121. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks very much for tuning in to another episode. Clearly, I do not have my front teeth yet, and you can probably hear that from the sound of my voice, but I am getting used to it. A little bit of humility wouldn't be that bad, but it is what it is. So by the time that you tune into this episode, we will have already gotten back from our last trip to Colorado, having done the Boulder, which will be our, I believe, first event with Vegan Strong that is endurance-based. Is that right, Danny?
In the endurance space? Is that what you said? Yeah.
That's not what I said, but you got me anyway.
I'm trying, man. I am trying.
This time around, I got an excuse. It's my teeth and not me miswording things. Oh, gosh. Anyways, and we got nothing going on in June as far as traveling goes, but we are going to be in Anaheim for the Idea Expo, which if you're unfamiliar with it, and we've done it before, it is a place where if you are a fitness professional or are looking to connect with other fitness professionals, that is a place to be. A lot of research, a lot of education, a lot of really cool names, and a whole lot going on in that regard, actually. It's very educational and informative.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite shows that we do if you're in the fitness space at all. It's definitely worth checking out. It's pretty fun.
Oh, yeah, truly. I actually thought it was going to be in Vegas, but apparently it's in Anaheim this year.
Rats. I love Vegas. But that's okay. We will be back 2 weeks after that, also in August, for the Anaheim Fit Expo. So we will be back to back in Anaheim, just a couple weeks apart later on this summer. Should be very fun.
Yeah, hopefully you are all enjoying your summer fitness goals and you're crushing them. If there's something that you need support with, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. Whether you are a Muscles by Brussels member or not, whether you're working with us or not, we always love hearing from you. We always love feedback. Please do not hesitate to hit us up anywhere, some way, somehow, because we are here for you. And it's also super interesting to know what everyone else has got going on in terms of your goals for the summer, goals for the rest of this year. I know for myself, I'm going to be working on muscle building probably this summer for the most part. What about you? Do you have anything in specific you're working towards, Danny?
Just training for life.
Training for life. Getting stronger. For sure. You took me through one of those workouts that you do with the group classes, and I gotta say, they are pretty intense. I was like huffing and puffing halfway through them. I could see how you get a good workout with that style of training.
Yeah, it's very challenging. It's just very different than what I normally do, and rather than be like, well, the science says that you have to do it this way to make hypertrophy gains, I am just trying to do something a little bit different and pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and that in and of itself has been a growing experience, I think.
Yeah, totally. And it forces your muscles to develop in a different way, which in my opinion makes them more resilient. So you wind up being able to be more well-rounded with what your muscles are able to do, which in turn will help you with your ultimate goal, whether it's hypertrophy or something else. So more power to you. I actually wouldn't mind joining in on the classes, but they're women.
It is for women only.
So
not for you.
Yeah, it's not for me.
It's not your space, bud.
Anyways, yeah, hopefully by now I'm going to be in a better place because the past, I want to say 6 months, the stresses that I've just been coping with have come to a head. Life stress, we all go through it. And for me personally, it reached a tipping point. Right? And things came to a head for me where I'm like, all right, dude, you got to take better care of yourself. Your basic needs are not even being met. You got to pull it back a little bit and reevaluate. And that is kind of a perfect segue for this particular episode, which is not necessarily...
Really, this whole month. This entire month of June, we are going to be talking about stress and mental health and how it affects your fitness and your life and vice versa. Your nutrition and your fitness can affect your stress, but your stress can also affect how well you perform in other areas of life. And we are going to dive into that for this entire month.
Yeah, exactly. And what are we talking about today, Danny?
Stress. Today we're talking about stress and specifically different supplements that you could take to help your body cope with stress. But I think there ought to be a really big caveat to this particular topic because a supplement should be just that, a supplement to the rest of your lifestyle. Unfortunately, a lot of people put supplements before all of that. They start buying supplements before they actually make any lifestyle change, and that's not going to be very helpful at all. That's just kind of a waste of money.
Yes and no. I do think there's something to be said for the placebo effect. But to Danny's point here, and I feel also very strongly about this, the placebo effect and starting off like that to get motivated works to a point, and then at some point you're just throwing away your money, you're not dealing with the actual problems, and perhaps you're not looking into the things that could actually help you supplement-wise.
So there are a ton of supplements on the market that claim to help your body with stress, but I actually went to what I consider to be the best possible resource for research on supplements and how effective they are and how safe they are, and that's examine.com. And that's what we're going to be basing this off of. They study all of the supplements. They go through tons of meta-analysis to see whether or not supplements that claim to have certain effects actually do, or if it's just kind of bunk and hype and marketing. So because to me, this is a very specific podcast, this isn't just like a conversation. You can just riff back and forth on each other. You're going to hear my papers rustling around because I have ASMR. Vegan Proteins ASMR. Because I have lots of research to reference here because there's no way I could keep quite all of this in my head.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
But, of course, we have to say, don't take any supplements without talking to your doctor. We are not doctors. We are not advising you to take anything here. We are simply talking about what the research says, and then you can make whatever decisions you want with that.
Exactly. Well, I don't know what you got over there on your trusty list, but I do want to start with the tried and true ones. The first one, for what I believe to be something to help you with stress, is protecting yourself from deficiencies like a B12 deficiency or low B vitamins. Now,
it's worth noting that Giacomo did not use the same source that I used, correct? You did not use examine.com?
Correct.
Okay, so... Okay.
But there are some things that are less, how do I say, for what I'm looking into with these first two things, the first one being B12, and we beat this one to death, but it's so true. It's what we know deficiencies in certain vitamins will do. So it's less about how to fight off stress and more about making sure that deficiencies in nutrition don't cause stress. Right? B12 is responsible for helping your neurotransmitters transport norepinephrine, serotonin, and dopamine. So you could imagine if you wound up becoming deficient in B12, the consequences of your brain chemistry when your neurotransmitters are unable to transport some pretty important things through your system, like feel-good chemicals, reward chemicals, chemicals that help you manage fight or flight and adrenaline, for example. Like, that's pretty serious business, This is where I am going to go ahead and go where you've gone hundreds and thousands of times before. I'm going to go here at least one more time. Do not be that purist person who thinks that you can get all of your nutrients from food and you wind up shooting yourself in the foot. And at the very least, get your levels tested. The truth of the matter is that once upon a time, you probably were able to get the right amount of B12, but modern day agriculture has destroyed the earth. And even if you're eating all the right kinds of foods and you're eating it in a nutrient-dense, whole foody kind of way, chances are you're going to be deficient in B12, whether you're vegan or not. because you're not supplementing. So it's something that we highly recommend. Strongly recommend you get tested. You get a B12 specific test, not the general one that they give you, the one that shows what's bioavailable in your system. And you take a methyl-based B12 because there are two types of B12. One is not easily digested, the cinna-based, cyanocobalamin, and one is easily digested, the methyl-based, the methylcobalamin. The second supplement that should be a duh, but again, when it comes to those of us who take care of ourselves, we forget the fact that sometimes you can't get everything you need from food. Sometimes you do need to actually supplement. D3. D3 is a big one. Signs that you're deficient in D3: depression, muscle weakness, poor sleep, fatigue. I mean, could you imagine blaming your environment or your relationships or other things on whatever it was that you were feeling, experiencing, and then realizing, looking at a test, being like, I am so stupid. I was actually deficient in vitamin D, and that was what was causing these symptoms. And one could argue you can get D from sunlight, but unless you're actually exposing your skin to sunlight properly for a certain amount of time every day, and the sun is strong, you ain't getting in enough D3. And it is one of those supplements that you should 110% consider getting in regularly. I get in about 5,000 IU a day during the winter, and during this late spring and summer, and even early fall, I'm still getting in around 3,000 IU a day on average. Hey listeners, we hope you've been enjoying this episode, and we appreciate your love of all things vegan fitness. For those of you who want even more support on your vegan fitness journey, check out our Muscles by Brussels community and become a member. By joining the team, you are one of our exclusive VIPs. As a member, you'll find over 200 macro-friendly, high-protein recipes that can meet any of your meal planning needs. You'll also receive training programs that update monthly. This training has progressive overload built into it, so you can be sure if you're following the program, you are making progress. All of this and more is located inside our Vegan Proteins Members Only app. As a Muscles by Brussels member, you'll unlock bonus courses, challenges, and more every month. You'll also be invited to our live Zoom video calls, which happen 2 times a month, and are absolute gold to those who show up. And if you can't make the calls, don't worry, you have the opportunity to email us whenever you want. You'll receive a video response to all of your questions from one of the coaches here at Vegan Proteins every time you message us. Members also receive 40% off many of our other services. And of course, our private community of like-minded individuals is like no other. Best of all, you can try this membership out for a full month at no cost to you with this special offer for our listeners only, because we appreciate and want to fully support you. Use the link in our show notes to sign up for your free trial today. We hope to see you on our next live coaching call.
So all of that was basically about preventing major deficiencies in the first place that would be perceived as stressful to your body, right?
Right.
Okay, interesting. That's an interesting route to take here. I mean, it's true. Man, you want to talk about a supplement that will affect your mental health if you don't have enough of it, is vitamin B12. You don't have enough of it, you will get literal irreversible brain damage. How's that for affecting your mental health? So even though that is not here on my sheet, yes, I think that's very, very important. So the stuff that's on my list here, when I talk about stress, I'm talking about the physical and psychological effects of stress specifically, because one could argue, you get the flu because your stress levels are too high. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about things like anxiety, worry, fear, those sorts of things. How can we sort of combat those things? And like I said, before you even start to think about looking at supplementation for these things, you need to actually look at your life, which is actually going to be one of our future episodes about how to adapt and kind of how do you live with stress, right? Like we all have stress. We all have work stress, relationship stress, health stress, other kinds of like trying to strike a work-life balance. Some of us have family issues or illnesses around us. Like everybody has stress, and how do you mentally cope with that? Well, a lot of us do, stress out. Like we worry about different outcomes, and that's important to be able to plan for outcomes for various things, but that worrying can be taken too far where you become not very productive. You're just spinning your wheels basically and not actually getting anything done. You're just worrying. So these are supplements that will hopefully help people combat that. But before you do that, look at your life. Take a long, hard look. Maybe listen to the next episode. And then come back to this one. Maybe we should have posted these in the opposite order. Hey, maybe we will. Because we're recording them at the same time. So the number one supplement, in fact, the only real 100% proven supplement to help aid in stress. Do you want to take a guess what it is? Because I was actually pretty surprised.
I got nothing.
It's magnesium. Magnesium is the number one, only real, proven 100% supplement to help aid in stress. Now, where can you get magnesium? Great question, Giacomo. You can find them in lots of leafy green vegetables and nuts. So if you are eating enough foods that have magnesium in them, you don't actually have to supplement with magnesium. But you can supplement with a little bit of magnesium. It's not going to hurt. So let's talk a little bit about that.
No.
Okay, so what makes magnesium like the supplement? So it's a dietary mineral that plays an important role in the brain. So hypomagnesemia, okay, that's how you say it. That is like when you don't have enough magnesium in your brain, can result in abnormal neuronal excitations and thereby cause or increase anxiety. So studies have shown that inducing magnesium deficiencies also induces stress and anxiety. And I guarantee you these tests were done in animals. So make of that what you will. Do not recommend, but hey, this is what we've got. So when they give mice and rats magnesium deficiencies, they become more stressed out. So the number one food that contains magnesium is pumpkin seeds. Yeah, pumpkin seeds have about 600 milligrams of magnesium for 3.5 ounces of pumpkin seeds, which is a lot of ounces. Like that's a lot of pumpkin seeds.
Yeah.
But still, that is far and away the highest. Flax seeds are the second at just under 400 for the same amount.
Cool.
So who's most likely to have low magnesium levels? Older people, because they tend to have lower intakes of magnesium and they also may absorb less. People who sweat a lot, because magnesium is an electrolyte that we sweat out of our bodies. So, you need to replace it. And type 2 diabetics also tend to be low in magnesium. However, it is worth noting that taking too much magnesium can and will cause diarrhea and digestional discomfort for sure. So just because some is good does not mean that more is better. So for most adults, looking at like between 19 and over like 19 years old and up, men, we're looking at about 400 milligrams per day. Women, 310 milligrams per day. That's a great place to be in terms of magnesium. And if you are going to supplement with it, you would want to take magnesium citrate, magnesium gluconate, or magnesium glycinate. Those are the best forms to take.
Does it help you sleep?
Yes. It can also help you fall asleep. So you could take this in the evening. It's usually best to be taken with food because, like I said, if you have too much of it, it can cause diarrhea. But even if you have a small amount of it, when you take it on an empty stomach, it could cause your stomach to be a little bit upset. But a lot of people, do like to take it in the evening, and they claim that it helps them have a decent bowel movement in the morning.
Can you absorb it like a magnesium salt bath?
I don't No, I don't think so.
I would say no as well.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any proven evidence around that, but those kinds of ideas do exist out there.
Okay, so there are a few supplements that have pretty good research behind them. Not as 100% proven as the magnesium, but I wanted to talk about the other ones here. So, secondary supplements. Arginine with lysine is the top secondary supplement. So they actually did human studies on this one, and they studied what is called state and trait anxiety, which is like anxiety about a specific thing. So this would not be for like generalized anxiety disorder. This is like if you are particularly stressed out about an event. They found that when they supplemented people with arginine and lysine in combination, that it did alleviate some of their anxiety symptoms when it was about something specific. Mm-hmm. So if you were going to try this route, you would take 1.25 grams of arginine and 1.25 grams of lysine twice per day. And you can have it with or without a meal.
Did your research lead you to 5-HTP at all?
No.
What are your feelings on it?
I don't have strong feelings on it. Generally speaking, if examine.com doesn't say to me that like, hey, yeah, this has science behind it for sure, check this one out, then I am not interested in it, honestly. However, depression is usually what people use 5-HTP for.
Let's give them some context. It helps raise serotonin levels.
Right.
It's a byproduct of tryptophan.
Which is not what I was really looking for, but I guess depression could absolutely be a side effect of stress. And
little bit of extra serotonin flowing through couldn't be the worst thing in the world, eh? So, yeah. I mean,
5-HTP is also it can be lethal to take it if you're on antidepressants.
Again, consult with your doctor, especially if you're taking medication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can cause serotonin syndrome, which can kill you.
Yes.
So, okay. So the next secondary supplement that I came up with here, I actually have like feelings about. It's kava. I
can't get past the numb tongue feeling, in all honesty. I don't like that sensation.
Yeah, so this is a supplement that they actually did recommend for people with general anxiety disorder, which is actually what I have taken it for in the past. For those of you who don't know, I have generalized anxiety disorder. But I didn't like it personally. If you take it on an empty stomach, you will throw up. But also, some of the research that I saw kind of steered me away from it because it talked about how, like, if you took it long term, it could damage your liver. So what they said is, some concerns have been raised about the safety of kava because of reports of liver damage. Such reports are numerous enough to be cause for concern, yet it is still unclear whether and in which cases kava can be blamed. The current view is that kava at high doses for prolonged periods of time or combined with other, and then my page cuts off, I believe that it can cause problems if you take it long term. So I personally, even though it looks like there is some research to support it for generalized anxiety disorder, I do not recommend it. It's not safe enough for me to recommend it.
Okay, not even like here and there. Okay.
Not. I don't think it's a great idea. The next one is lavender, and we're all very, very familiar with lavender. So it's traditionally used in aromatherapy to reduce anxiety. And actually, when they looked at a 2019 meta-analysis, took a look at 37 randomized controlled trials, which are a meta-analysis in and of itself is like the creme de la creme of studies because it looks at other studies, usually a lot of them, and draws conclusions on all of the studies. Basically, they found that lavender was associated with an overall improvement in anxiety, but they did find that a lot of the studies seemed to exhibit a high risk of bias, meaning it looks like they went into these studies hoping to find exactly that. But in studies examining oral supplementation, so taking lavender oil has been found to benefit people with generalized anxiety disorder. while lavender and lemon balm, which is the next one I'm going to get to, have been shown to be synergistic. So they actually work better together, much like the arginine and lysine.
I have lavender going in a diffuser in my office, actually, and it's definitely soothing and definitely helps me manage my stress when I'm overworking myself. I kind of swear by it, honestly.
Yeah, here's my thoughts on aromatherapy in general. This has nothing to do with stress specifically. Could it possibly be bullshit that it's helpful? Yeah, it could be possible, but if you have smells that are around that you like, that make you feel a certain kind of way, as long as it's not like something toxic, who cares? Like, enjoy it. Love it. You might love a smell that somebody else absolutely hates.
Exactly.
And vice versa. So as far as like studies on aromatherapy, I don't know. It sounds a little bit woo to me, but I mean, who doesn't like a really nice essential oil being diffused through their room? Like, it smells lovely, and it can totally just be something that changes the mood of a whole room, and I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Where did your research lead you to with this hot button topic, which it's got to be talked about because it's all over the place? I mean, it's literally all the... I always get these two confused. All the rave or all the rage? I think it's all the
Rage.
Thank you. Me and... I got to tell you, when it comes to like sayings, I get them wrong every time. Don't know why I'm like that, but I am. Anyways, adaptogenic herbs.
That's actually what I'm going to talk about next.
Yeah, look at us, synchronicity and whatnot.
Is ashwagandha. This came up under a very promising supplement. And the reason that it is a promising supplement rather than like, hey, you should really consider taking this supplement, wasn't because the research there wasn't good. The research behind this was actually very good. There's just not enough of the research to solidly say heck yes or heck no.
Can we just back up for a quick minute and talk about what an adaptogenic herb is? It's something that is herbal-based that is known to be helpful in regulating your cortisol, which is the stress hormone that's secreted into your system that can literally wreak havoc on your system. Adaptogenic herbs also are known to enhance focus, give you better mental stamina, reduce irritability, basically manage stress and anxiety and fatigue. Things that happen to you that are chemical stressors, biological stressors, or physical stressors. When it comes to those stressors, adaptogenic herbs can help you better manage what happens when you are not stress adapted to things like that. And they're usually herbal based. And ashwagandha is not the only one out there. There are lots of other ones that are out there. Ginseng is the oldest one known, dating back to like 5,000 years ago when it comes to Chinese medicine. Panax? Am I saying it right? Or just ginseng, essentially, is like literally the oldest one out there. How effective it is, I couldn't tell you, but it's definitely one of the first ones that it was identified. Turmeric, moringa, maca, mushrooms, and this is where you have to be a little careful, right? Because when it comes to the supplement industry, when it comes to the health industry, things are sensationalized. Things are marketed. Things are advertised.
Just like the superfoods that we did on our last podcast.
Exactly. And it doesn't necessarily mean that this stuff is bunk and that there's no evidence or anything behind it to back it as being effective. It's just like, just know the difference between something that's being marketed to you as a tonic, if you will, or just like a cure-all, or just like a miracle supplement. Like, oh my God, adaptogenics, mushrooms, I'm going to take this every day, and or, you know, it could be helpful, but it's not going to be a game changer for you, for example. You know?
Yeah. A lot of people are very into them. I have never really gotten very into them, but I do like ashwagandha. I do kind of swear by ashwagandha. A lot of my clients know that I have recommended it for them. So if you want to try taking ashwagandha, first of all, take it in the morning because some people have reported that it keeps them kind of up at night. I've never taken it at night, so I can't speak to that personally. But if you want to supplement with ashwagandha, you want to find a product with KSM66. So this is a proprietary water-based extract that's standardized to 5% withanolides. So once you find a product that has that in it, that KSM66, which is basically, just to put that in like English, it's an extract so that it's a standardized amount. So you're always getting the same amount every time, rather than if you just like chewed on an ashwagandha root, you don't really know what you're getting. So the usual dosage range is 300 to 600 milligrams per day. Do not take more than 1,200 milligrams per day.
Yeah, and it's also relatively affordable, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's not that pricey of a supplement.
No, it's not. It's not that bad. It's usually like, I want to say like $30 for a few months supply.
And when you think of all the ways that you get sold and marketed to, and before you know it, you're spending like 50 plus bucks a month on something that is touted as like the best new adaptogen in the world, and really it's just like some mushrooms that may or may not help you. Again, not to discourage you from experimenting and trying things that might help, but it's just like when you could take something that has the research behind it, that's affordable, and like the ashwagandha, for example, and actually be making a difference versus, pissing away hundreds of dollars on stuff and thinking it's going to do better for you than it actually is. This is the difference between the two, right? Just be having realistic expectations based on understanding better, like the research that's out there, essentially.
So lemon balm, we just talked about using it with lavender, but basically lemon balm, it's actually a light sedative, not an anti-anxiety supplement per se, but people with anxiety issues can use it to help them fall asleep. And I actually noticed those melatonin gummies. Jagamo keeps making fun of me because I keep swearing by these gummies.
Swears by these gummies.
Listen, I have struggled with falling asleep my whole life. And these gummies made for kids with 1 milligram of melatonin in them. 1 milligrammo of melatonin. And it's like magic to me. And of course, obviously, they're vegan. But they also have lemon balm in them, a teeny tiny amount.
There you go.
So even though quality sleep is a great way to reduce general anxiety, it can be difficult to get to sleep if anxiety strikes right near bedtime. So having some lemon balm in the evening could be very helpful. And like we mentioned before, it seems to act better with lavender. Like lemon balm and lavender together work better than lavender or lemon balm alone. And it seems to kind of have, based on this research, it seems to have a pretty immediate effect also. They're almost comparing it to benzodiazepines.
Interesting.
But it's clearly not addictive or habit-forming at all. So very interesting stuff. So you could take it orally up to 600 milligram dosages, or you could just use it in aromatherapy if that helps you as well. So let's talk about some very unproven supplements that to help with stress. So things that are definitely not advisable. What's the number one thing people reach for when they're stressed out? Just like the random average adult when they're stressed out, what do they say? I need a
beer?
Yeah, I was going to say a drink. I need a drink. Yeah, people are like, ugh, I need a drink. Because they think that it's going to help them, like, chill out. But it is, honest to God, one of the worst things that you could possibly do for stress or anxiety.
Mm-hmm. And why is that?
Well, a million reasons. I don't even know where to begin. So you get stressed out. You say, oh, I need a drink. And you have a drink. So then the drinking actually depletes the brain's reserves of serotonin, which we just talked about with the 5-HTP. So that's a neurotransmitter that helps reduce anxiety. So drinking depletes that in your brain. And then you feel more depressed and stressed. We all know that alcohol is what class of drugs is it?
Depressants.
It's a depressant. People forget this all the time because for a short period of time they feel happy, but it is a depressant. So depression sets in as serotonin levels are further reduced. Then you need more alcohol to self-medicate for anxiety. And the increased alcohol consumption, that can start to adversely affect your personal relationships, how well you're working, which of course is going to make you more anxious, right? If suddenly your wife is super pissed at you because you're drunk all the time, do you think you're going to be more stressed out or less stressed out? Like probably more. And then you're going to need a drink, but a stronger one this time, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's a terrible thing to do. I mean, I'm not like on my soapbox, like nobody should ever drink again, but like to drink because you're stressed out is a really, really bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
I love a good beer just as much as the next person, but I get that knee-jerk reaction sometimes too when I'm stressed out, like, ugh, a drink would be so nice right now. The second my brain goes there, I shut that down immediately. I do not drink when I'm stressed out on purpose because I know that is a very, very slippery slope.
It's habit forming.
It's super, super addictive. Also, nicotine. I'm very, very proud of my generation for decreasing the amount of smoking. When I was a kid, all of the adults smoked. And most of the people my age don't smoke, although...
Well, we went like the shame route with nicotine, didn't we?
It
hard.
worked, though. But it worked.
Real hard. I remember the poster behind my door and shaming the hell out of all the adults in my family, being like, look at your insides. Like, what if you could see your insides and they look like that right now? What if that's what you look like on the outside? Would you still do that? And everyone's like, shut up. I'm like, no.
Unfortunately, the next generation picked up vaping.
Yes, they sure did. Whole new
God
problem.
damn it, kids. Do you know how hard we worked to get that nicotine out of your hands?
Way to undo that, society.
Anyway, nicotine. So I'm assuming most people listening to this podcast don't smoke cigarettes, but there may be a good chunk of you folks that vape because it is very, very popular. So nicotine is known to reduce anxiety. Here's the catch. In new users. So when you first start smoking or vaping, your anxiety does actually decrease every time you take a hit. But your tolerance builds up pretty quickly, which leads to a reduction in the anti-anxiety effect, which also means just like alcohol, now you need more of it to get that same effect. Obviously, tolerance leads to nicotine withdrawal, which increases your anxiety.
That sounds good at all. At all.
None of that sounds good? Is that what you said?
No, of course. It's not even something you can, like, taper off of and get back on. It's just one of those things where it just rewards you less and less and less, and then you need it just to be able to satisfy the amount of dopamine that your brain craves from the nicotine without any actual benefits after the fact whatsoever, and you're just left with an addiction. It's pretty crappy when you think about it. What about marijuana?
Ooh.
Always a hot button now, especially with the legality around it haven't changed so much over the past decade.
So this did not pop up in my research.
Any emotions
but
around
it's
it?
Certainly something that I could talk about. So I take pause around any substance that somebody wants to reach for because they are stressed out. Now, I don't partake in anything marijuana related myself, but I have had clients and friends and family that do, first of all, and also that have found certain medicinal things helpful about it, like falling asleep easier. And I certainly think it's a better option than like over-the-counter sleeping pills or prescription sleeping pills or drinking yourself to sleep, right? Like I do think it's better than that, but I know a lot of people talk about how marijuana is not addictive, and maybe it's not like physically addictive, like you can't get a chemical physical dependence upon it, but it is 100% addictive. Well, I'll die on that hill.
It's governing your endocannabinoid system because it just binds to the receptors like crazy, and you could just imagine what that kind of regulation in your system would lead you to want more of, right? When it's affecting it, and there's pleasure involved in those receptors and all kinds of other things. I think, like anything else, please don't get this wrong, the poison is in the dose.
Yep.
It really is. It's where we go to, like, which is no longer a buzzword, it's actually a real thing now, microdosing with stuff, because you can get the beneficial properties of something within reason, because sometimes that it's not even helpful in that regard, without the negative side effects. Whereas something, unfortunately, like marijuana, it's been abused, right? So it's like, you just wind up messing with your system.
It's just, I mean, I have my own personal biases and
Same,
and
actually.
have known just so many people who love to talk about how safe marijuana is, who are like, they can't get out of bed without it. They can't go to the grocery store without it. They can't go to sleep without it. They can't have a conversation without it. They can't get any work done without it. And they're telling me how not addictive it is.
Well, to me, that sounds more like an addictive personality than the substance itself, in all honesty, Danny. But I hear you.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could say that about anything. Like, oh, the internet isn't addictive, right? You know, you're not going to go through physical withdrawal if you stop going on the internet or picking up your cell phone. But a lot of us do that compulsively when we're feeling anything uncomfortable. Actually, I caught myself doing this recently, and I've installed a very expensive app blocker on my phone to keep me off of it pretty much all day. Because I would notice anytime I started to feel anything negative, if I was a little stressed out, if I was a little bit worried, if I was a little bit uncomfortable, I'd pick up my phone and look at it, like check it for notifications or something. And then I started to put the pieces together that I was doing it because I was uncomfortable or bored and didn't want to be bored. And I was like, oh, this is messed up. See,
Right.
anything... This is just my own personal philosophy. Anything that you are doing that you don't really want to be doing, like that you didn't intentionally want to do, that makes me pause every single time to be like, why did I do that? Why am I doing that? And I think for a lot of people with weed, with marijuana, they're doing the same thing. It's just rather than picking up their phone and opening Reddit, they're just like constantly taking a hit off of weed or like off of a vape or something. People are just doing it it's just like this mini 2-second episode of dissociation. And then you got to like bring yourself back. So
Yeah.
Anyway, marijuana, I think is, still lots of emerging research coming out about it. If using, I don't really have an opinion in terms of, is it actually helping your stress or is it just temporarily masking your stress? I don't know. Like the alcohol, I don't know. So I don't want to come down and have a like, you should or you shouldn't do this. I just, with anything, especially if it alters your mind, like just think about it. I'm not opposed to all of these things, but I would say just think about it.
And manage your dose, too. Mm-hmm. You don't have to think of it in terms of doses. You could still think of it in terms of something that's therapeutic that or something you enjoy, but in terms of like actual like matters of practicality with what you're doing, yeah, the amount it's pretty darned important. It makes a difference.
A couple of other ones. One on this list, one that to me seems like a duh. The one that was on the list was yohimbine. So I think it's relevant to our audience because it is a sports supplement that some people use at later points during competition prep.
Stuff is no joke. It's pretty intense.
But one of the major side effects of it is anxiety. Mm-hmm. So if you already struggle with anxiety, it may not be the supplement for you.
It's a tough one. It really gets your norepinephrine going, like big time, actually.
What it says here is people who are susceptible to panic attacks or have panic disorders are especially susceptible to anxiety caused by yohimbine. And along that same line, I would say caffeine. Mm-hmm. Caffeine, it's kind of like the coffee or the vaping or the weed or the drinks. Oh, yeah. It's like, it's just a thing you do, right? Like, oof, I need a break. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. It's not water, guys. Fun story, I guess. So when I was a teenager, a young teenager, a 14-year-old teenager, I started working at Pizza Hut. And Pizza Hut back in the day had a full service to their dining room and blah, blah, blah. One of the things we had was coffee that we could serve for people. That lunch buffet. Does anybody remember? I remember. Lots of blue hairs coming in for their coffee. And I started drinking coffee at 14 years old, which I don't think is super weird, but because I worked there, like I had free access to coffee all of the time, and I started drinking like a pot of coffee during my 8-hour shifts. And a couple weeks into this, I start getting like heart palpitations. I start going through these phases where it's like, oh my God, I can't breathe. I'm going to die. And I started going to the emergency room because I couldn't breathe and I thought I was going to die. And they were like, kid, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, you're having a panic attack. And I was like, no, homie, check again. I'm dying. Please fix this. I'm dying. And I probably went to the emergency room like 4 times or so in that like year and a half period before I started to believe them. And then when it happened, I could recognize, oh, I'm having a panic attack. This sucks, but I'm not going to die. I can get through this. But I swear to God, it wasn't until I was like well into adulthood, 25, 26, 27, that I started to think back to that time period and be like, I wonder if those straight up pots of coffee that I was drinking on a regular basis had anything to do with those panic attacks.
No, it was whatever you were going through. It had nothing to do with the coffee whatsoever. It can absolutely trigger you like that. And you want to keep your caffeine below, I think after 400 milligrams, like 400 milligrams is already the upper limit. Past that, there's no known benefits and there's only downsides. And unfortunately, like all these other substances we're talking about, caffeine has the same effect on your body where eventually you find yourself
needing more of it.
And it's doing absolutely nothing other than satisfying the fix. It's not even giving you the dopamine hit anymore. It's just like literally without it, you're going to feel like trash.
And man, not like I've been through lots of withdrawals in my life, but caffeine withdrawal is no joke. That stuff is miserable, which should tell you something. Like, if it sucks that bad to go a couple days without coffee,
something you regulate.
Maybe we just shouldn't be like drinking it so freely.
And my family, my story is that they found it amusing and pretty cute that everyone would just have their espresso all day long and into the night. Oh yeah, he's a kid, he wants espresso. Just it was like it's an Italian thing. We all just have espresso all the time, and we could have so many shots of espresso that we could even fall asleep after the fact. But that's a little weird when you think about it and you actually think about what that's doing to your body, and it's no longer some cute thing you do because you got a big Italian family and you drink espresso all day long. It's like if you could get a jolt of caffeine like that and fall asleep, there's probably something not so hot going on in your system.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just something that I don't think is helping people. And I drink coffee. I have 1 cup of coffee every single day, which is, I don't know, like somewhere between 70 and 100 milligrams. I'm like, that's it. If I have more than that, I do notice that, 1, initially my anxiety increases, but after a couple weeks of that, I'm just exhausted. Like, this isn't super weird when people are like, I'm so exhausted, there's no amount of sleep that is making me feel better. Sometimes we look at their caffeine consumption and it's really high. And I think they've just like fried themselves from the inside and they can't get rest properly.
Yeah.
So I would say that is definitely something you don't want to take if you are very stressed out. If you can cut it down significantly or even cut it out, it will help.
Or just take like breaks in between. Give your body a chance to get resensitized to whatever it is you're going to choose to continue to consume for whatever reason.
Moving on to our question and answer segment. This one's real simple, but I think it is great. How do you quit drinking alcohol?
How do you quit drinking alcohol? Well, you can always go the hard route and just go cold turkey. But depending on how much alcohol you are drinking, that may be an actual dangerous approach to take because your body literally does become dependent on alcohol. So if your alcohol consumption is that regular and that high, I mean like more than say 2 to 3 drinks a week and maybe even consistently like 2 to 4 drinks a day, for example, if that's your alcohol consumption and you decide to just stop, your body might go through some really dangerous, you might have some really dangerous body responses that could actually land you in the hospital. So it really depends on how much your alcohol consumption is. So you can cut down slowly. The other thing you can do is you can introduce alcohol-like substances that are alcohol-free. And my personal favorites are like they've come out with like really creative ones now that are way better than They used to be, like in the past, it was like O'Doul's, right? Was there any other one, Danny, outside of O'Doul's?
There's a lot, but I don't remember.
I mean,
what
like
they
20
are.
years ago.
I don't know.
From what I remember, that was the only one back in the day. It was like O'Doul's or nothing, and it was pretty crappy. It didn't taste like beer at all. The ones they have now are just, they're really good, actually. There's, I think one's called Athletic Brew. You have the basic ones, like actual...
Hop water.
Hop water is really good because that doesn't even taste like alcohol. That just has kind of like a hoppy aftertaste to it. So you don't even have to like so for some people the sensory experience around something can actually be off-putting. For others, it can be comforting. So it's got to depend on you, right? So if the sensory experience is off-putting, but you still want a little bit of the flavor, hop water be good. If you like the sensory experience, you can go for something like an Athletic Brew, or even go to a name like a Lagunitas, whatever, or Heineken, zero alcohol free, whatever it is. But there's a ton out there to experiment with. What's that? Yeah, no, the Hoplark, I think, is the hop free brand. Yep. So check out that stuff. It might give you the same kind of fix craving wise while you're lessening or eliminating alcohol from your diet, so to speak, altogether. Danny, how do you get over your gym intimidation? I recently got a gym membership and went for the first time yesterday. I wanted to lift, but it was a little busy, and mostly guys were in the lifting area, and so I stayed on the elliptical because I was too scared to do anything else. I feel very outside of my comfort zone.
That's exactly how I was when I started going to the gym. I only got on the elliptical, and it was like the elliptical all the way in the corner, like tucked behind a little wall so that nobody could see me. But I could kind of see over the wall and see into the weight room and wanted to be over there so bad. And I spent months doing that before I built up the courage to go into the weight room. So great on you for getting over there at all, because it is very intimidating the first time. And it is usually mostly men in the weight room floor. It's gotten way, way, way better than it used to be, but it's still mostly men. So I think there's a couple of things that I would say. First, just kind of accept the fact that you're going to feel a little bit like a fish out of water for a couple weeks while you go there. There is going to come a point where you feel fine over there and you are able to navigate that side of the gym without a problem. But just accept that there are going to be moments where you're just like, you have these feelings like, oh, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. You do belong there, but you will have those feelings. What I found to be, I didn't find it to be very helpful at the time, so maybe you won't find this to be helpful either, but now looking back, I'm like, oh, they were totally right. Was people telling me, no one cares. Like, no one is looking at you. No one even cares. They're very focused on what they're doing. And I was like, yeah, you just tell me that to make me feel better. But now that I've been going to the gym for 20 years, no one is looking at you. No one cares. If anything, generally speaking, the more hardcore gym rats are happy when they see new faces there because you are becoming interested in something that they are already interested in. And that makes people happy to see other people embarking on this fitness, weightlifting journey. And, I even get a little tiny bit nostalgic when I see brand new people start lifting weights because they're still so excited about it and they're getting really good results. And that's the best time ever. And you don't have that 20 years in, you don't get those same results and just as fired up as you used to get to go train. So there's that. I would also say find a program that you can follow so that you don't just feel like you're wandering around without a plan. That used to be the worst thing for me, was showing up and just not knowing what I was going to do. So I just kind of meander around to whatever machine was open and try to figure it out. It doesn't have to be a fancy plan. It could always be a Muscles by Brussels plan. We have options for the gym or at home. It changes every month. We teach you how to do all of the lifts, but really you could use any weightlifting plan. Just have a plan. And then YouTube search the videos, so you could, the names of the exercises, so that you can see how to do those exercises before you get there, so that you have some rough idea of what you're going to be doing. As I mentioned earlier, I do deal with some degree of anxiety all the time, and something that kind of kicks my anxiety into high gear is not knowing what to expect. I don't like not knowing what to expect. So knowing what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, starting to think about like, okay, well, this machine's over here. Just like kind of imagining what I'm going to do before I do it really helps me a lot. But ultimately, just remember that the other people that are there are very focused on themselves and generally speaking are probably very happy for you. So don't stress about it. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. Feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and at veganproteins.com if you are looking for any kind of coaching, whether that be group coaching, challenges, one-on-one coaching. You can find all of that information at veganproteins.com. And if you have any requests you'd like to hear about here on this podcast, shoot us an email, coach@veganproteins.com. Once again, thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Danny.
And I'm Giacomo.
And we will talk to you soon.